The spaceship Varkana floated silently in deep space. It was one of the Empire's deadliest ships, built for war and conquest. Inside, the air was heavy, cold, and quiet, like a storm waiting to break. In a dark metal cell, a single human. Sat alone, his hands were tied, his face bruised, but his eyes were calm. He looked around the room, not with fear, but curiosity. His name was Captain Riker, a soldier from Earth, captured during a failed mission. Outside the cell, alien soldiers stood guard, tall and armored. They belonged to the Velari Empire, a powerful alien race who believed humans were weak and simple. But today, something felt different. Today, someone special was coming to see him. The door slid open with a sharp hiss. She walked in. Tall, proud, and dangerous, her name was Commander Lysaria, the daughter of the Supreme Warlord. Her silver armor reflected the red lights of the prison, and her violet eyes showed no mercy. She stepped closer to the human and stared at him without speaking. Riker looked up at her, then smiled. That smile was strange, wrong, confusing. Prisoners were supposed to be afraid, not amused. "You're lucky to still be alive," she said coldly. Riker tilted his head. "No, I think you're lucky I let you catch me." Her eyes narrowed. She had heard humans were foolish, but not this foolish. Without warning, she slapped him across the face. Hard, the sound echoed in the metal walls. Riker turned his head back slowly, still smiling, his cheek red, but his voice steady. "Touch me again," he said softly, "and you'll regret it." Lysaria raised an eyebrow. "No," she replied, her voice sharp like a blade. "Touch me once, and I won't spare you." Human. They stared at each other. Two enemies, two worlds apart. But something shifted in that moment. Not fear, not anger, something else. A strange connection neither of them understood. Suddenly, the scanner in the room began to beep, 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 faster, louder. Lysaria frowned. "What is that noise?" An assistant ran in, eyes wide, holding a device. "Commander," he said quickly. "His DNA is changing." "What do you mean?" she asked, not taking her eyes off Riker. "The human," the assistant said, shaking. "He's not normal." Lysaria looked at Riker again, and for the first time she felt something new, uncertainty. The scanner's screen showed data, flying across signals, codes, spikes. No human had ever shown this before. His body was reacting to something inside the ship, or inside her. Riker stood up slowly. The metal cuffs around his wrists melted like wax. His smile faded, replaced by something colder. "Did your empire ever ask why humans fight so hard?" he said, his voice low. "Because when you push us to the edge, we don't break, we evolve." Lysaria took a step back, her hand on her weapon. "Who are you?" she asked. Riker looked her dead in the eyes. "I'm what you were afraid we might become." Alarms started to ring through the ship. Soldiers rushed toward the cell, weapons drawn. But Lysaria held up a hand, stopping them. She needed to see what he would do. "I didn't come here to escape," Riker said calmly. "Then why?" she asked. "To show you what you've been lied to about," he answered. "To make you question what your empire really fears." She didn't know what to believe. This human, this thing, had just broken her prison cuffs without touching them. And yet, he hadn't attacked. He just stood there, watching her, like he was waiting. The guards stepped in, but Riker raised one hand. The lights flickered, and the walls shook. For a second, it felt like the entire ship was under his control. Lysaria's voice was steady, but her heart raced. "What do you want from me?" she asked. He leaned in close, just enough for only her to hear. "Your empire's time is ending," he whispered. "And you're going to help me bring it down." Fade to black. Asterisk. The lights inside the ship flickered like a dying heartbeat. "Commander." Lysaria stood still, staring at the human, who now seemed like something else. Riker's eyes were glowing faintly, not human anymore, or maybe too human to understand. She had seen prisoners break, scream, cry, beg, but never evolve. Never melt metal with no touch. Never make scanners scream like this. "Take him to Lab 7. She ordered quietly. Her voice was calm, but inside, her thoughts were spinning like a starstorm. 2 guards moved toward Raker with hesitation. He didn't resist. He just looked at Lysaria with a strange expression, part warning, part invitation. Lab 7 was hidden deep inside the ship, sealed and forgotten. Only the highest-ranking officers even knew it existed. It was where the Empire studied things that should never exist. Genetic monsters, ancient weapons, forbidden DNA. Riker was placed inside a circular glass chamber. Machines scanned him from every direction. Lysaria watched from the control room, arms crossed, trying to stay in control. "He's not just human," said the lead geneticist. Staring at the monitor, Lysaria didn't turn. "Explain." "There's something inside his genome," the scientist said. "Like a buried code. Not alien, not machine, not natural," he added, voice shaking. "It's a lock, and it's starting to open." Inside the chamber, Riker stood still, eyes closed. He could feel the machines crawling over his skin with light and sound. But what they didn't know was that he could feel them too. He began to whisper something. The cameras tried to read his lips, but it wasn't any known language. Suddenly, one of the screens cracked. "Shut him down," the scientist yelled. "No," Lysaria said. "Let him speak." Her heart was racing, not from fear, but from something else, curiosity. She pressed the intercom button. "Riker," she said, "what's inside you?" He opened his eyes slowly. "There's a war inside me," he said. "One your people started a long time ago. I've never seen you before." She replied. "No," he said. "But your ancestors did," Lysaria frowned. "Our empire discovered Earth only 100 years ago," she said. Riker smiled again. "Not cruel, not kind, just knowing you didn't discover Earth," he said. "You returned to it." The room fell silent. No one knew how to respond. Lysaria turned to the scientists. "Check the memory banks. Go as far back as the ship's AI can reach," she ordered. The IS voice came online. "Cold and neutral. Searching ancient records," it said. "Searching pre-war files. Searching hidden data archives." Then, beep, file found. It said, "Title, Project Ashes of Origin." Lysaria leaned forward. "Play it." The screen lit up with static, then cleared. A much older alien general appeared, speaking in an old dialect. "Subject, human anomaly," he said. "Status, contained, unstable, shows rapid adaptation beyond model limits. Order, terminate and bury project." The file ended. Everyone in the room was frozen. "You tried to erase us," Riker said, softly. "And now I'm here, a ghost from your empire's own sins." Lysaria stepped out of the control room and walked into the chamber. The guards tried to stop her, but she raised her hand. "No weapons," she said. "He doesn't need one." She stood in front of Riker again, but this time not as an interrogator. This time she was searching for truth. "What do you want?" she asked. He looked into her eyes. "To wake up your people," he said. "To remind them we were never weak." Lysaria reached out slowly, placing her hand on the glass. Riker raised his hand and did the same. Their hands didn't touch, but the glass between them glowed. In that moment, she saw something. A flash of memory. A battlefield. A child screaming. A blue planet burning. A Valari soldier walking away, leaving humans behind. She gasped, stepping back. "What did you just do?" she asked. "I showed you what they erased from your mind," Riker said. "You're not just a soldier." "Lysaria," he continued, "you're connected to this story more than you know." The alarms began again, but this time not from danger, from awakening. The Empire would come for both of them soon. But something had already changed, and it started with one forbidden gene, one forgotten truth, and one human who refused to die quietly. The dreams didn't belong to her, but every time Lysaria closed her eyes, she saw them, a ruined earth, skies on fire, and children running through ash. She wasn't there, but the memories felt real. She snapped awake in her quarters, sweat On her forehead, outside, the ship floated quietly in space, pretending nothing had changed, but everything had. Captain Riker sat in a containment room, no longer a prisoner, but not free either. The walls had been reinforced with energy fields and psychic dampeners, but he sat calmly, watching, almost like he knew what was next. Lysaria entered the observation deck, arms behind her back. The scientist stood nearby, whispering nervously, "The subject's brain waves are syncing with ours," one of them said. "He's not controlling the system." Another added, "He is the system." She didn't respond. Her thoughts were somewhere else. That memory from before, the child screaming, the world burning. It wouldn't leave her mind. She activated the intercom, her voice quiet. "You said I'm connected to this, Riker," she said. "I want to know how." He looked up, eyes steady. "Then stop testing me," he said, "and start testing yourself." The scientists began the next phase. They called it the mirror trial. Riker would be exposed to a mind interface field, technology that could pull memories from both subject and observer. It was illegal under most galactic codes, too dangerous to use on Valari citizens, but Riker wasn't a citizen. And Lysaria had volunteered to go inside the field with him. The chamber was prepared. 2 chairs faced each other, surrounded by a ring of flickering lights. Lysaria sat down without hesitation. Riker sat across from her, relaxed but focused. The lights blinked 3 times, then silence. Suddenly there was no ship, no walls, no scientists, no noise, only memory. They stood together on an old battlefield, surrounded by broken machines and fallen soldiers. It was Earth, but not the one Lysaria had seen in maps. This one was older, stronger, full of life before the flames. She turned and saw herself, younger, wearing a different uniform. "Is this real?" she asked. Riker nodded. "It's not the past," he said. "It's the truth you forgot." The younger Lysaria picked up a human child from the rubble. The child reached for her, and she smiled. That smile was not cold, not trained. It was human. Lysaria stepped back, confused. "I don't remember this," she whispered. "You were there," Riker said, "before the memory wipe. Before your empire decided who you were allowed to be." The scene shifted again. Now they were in a lab, not unlike the one on Varkana. A group of scientists stood around a sleeping Riker. Subject shows signs of advanced neural regeneration. One said, "Possible adaptive mutation," another said. The Valari didn't sound afraid. They sounded interested, like he was a toy, a test, a thing. Then came the order, "Terminate test subject," said a voice. "No loose ends." Lysaria looked at Riker. "You escaped," she said. He nodded slowly. "I wasn't supposed to," he said. "They tried to erase me." Suddenly, pain struck Lysaria's head. She fell to her knees, the memory collapsing. The system was breaking. Too much truth, too fast. Back in the real world, alarms blared. The experiment had gone beyond limits. Energy surged around the chamber. Lights exploded. Sparks flew. The doors refused to open. Inside, Riker reached out to her. "You're not them," he said. "You chose to see. That makes you different." Lysaria took his hand. A wave of energy burst outward, knocking out the systems. Then silence. The field was gone. They both sat there, breathing hard, eyes locked. The door finally opened. Guards rushed in with weapons, but stopped because they didn't see enemies anymore. They saw something else, something neither human nor Valari, something new. Riker stood first. "I didn't come here to fight you," he said, looking at them all. "I came to remind you what your empire did and what it fears the most." Lysaria stood beside him. Not in front of him, not behind him, beside. "Prepare a shuttle," she said to her officers. "Where are you going?" asked the scientist. "To Earth," she replied. "To the beginning," Riker added. Asterisk. The stars looked peaceful, but peace was a lie. At the edge of the galaxy, the Empire's ship Varkana approached a dead world, blue, broken, and forgotten. By time, this was Earth, the cradle of humanity, now reduced to ruins and dust. Commander Lysaria stood at the viewing window of the small recon shuttle, her face unreadable. Beside her, Raker stared at his home, or what was left of it. It had been years since he saw Earth from space, but the pain still felt fresh. Surface was covered in black scars, cities buried under ash. Oceans turned silver with metal and blood, and above it all, the Empire's flag still floated in orbit, cold and proud. "You sure you want to see this?" Lysaria asked. Riker nodded. "I've already lived through it once. This time," he said, "I want someone else to see it too." They landed in the ruins of an old human command center. The walls were broken, the screens dark, but deep. Inside the Earth, the archive still waited. The doors creaked open, dust filled the air. Old lights blinked slowly to life, one by one, as if the building still remembered its purpose. "This place," Lysaria whispered. "It was a bunker. Not just a bunker," Riker said. "A truth vault." He led her down a long corridor, passing faded murals of human heroes, images of battles, soldiers, scientists, children, all erased from alien history. They reached a large metal door. Riker placed his hand on it. It scanned him, hesitated, then opened. Inside was a chamber filled with floating memory crystals, thousands of them, glowing soft blue, each one holding a story, a face, a life. "Your empire erased our past," Riker said, "but humans saved it anyway." Lysaria stepped forward and touched one crystal. A hologram opened, showing a recording from 172 years ago. A Velari general stood on screen. He was speaking to a room full of leaders. "The human race cannot be controlled," he said. "They adapt too fast. Rebel too strong, dream too big. We offered peace," he continued. "They offered resistance, so now we rewrite the ending." The screen changed, explosions. Fire, orbit strikes on cities, children screaming, soldiers laughing. Lysaria backed away, hands shaking. She had been told humans started the war. She had been told they attacked first, that the Velari were defending themselves. But now she knew it had all been a lie. Riker watched her, his face calm but his eyes heavy. "I didn't bring you here to blame you," he said. "I brought you here because I needed someone to see. Someone who still had a heart." Lysaria turned to him, her voice low. "They lied to all of us." "Yes," he said, "but the truth is still alive." They began copying the data, thousands of files, images, voices. The truth would not stay buried this time. But far above them, on the Varkana, another story was unfolding. Captain Velran, Lysaria's second-in-command, had intercepted a secret transmission, a message from the Empire's High Command. "Commander Lysaria has gone dark." The message read, "Engaging in unauthorized contact with Class X prisoner. Retrieve her or eliminate her." Velran narrowed his eyes. He had always followed orders. But something in his gut twisted. He knew Lysaria. She was loyal, cold, sharp, the perfect Velari, or at least she used to be. He ordered the fleet to prepare. They would follow the shuttle to Earth. And if Lysaria had betrayed the Empire, she would be treated as an enemy. Back in the archive, the final download completed. Lysaria held a small crystal in her hand, the truth encoded inside it. "We have to take this back," she said. Raker shook his head. "No," he said. "You can't just show them the truth. You have to make them feel it." She looked at him, unsure. "How?" she asked. "By becoming the lie they fear the most," he said. "By becoming one of us. Outside." The sky turned red. The Varkana had arrived. Enemy ships filled the clouds, and their own people were now hunting them. Lysaria turned to Riker. "I never thought I'd stand against my own flag," she said. He nodded. "Welcome to humanity," he replied. "It always starts with betrayal." Space didn't have a heartbeat, but right now she did. And for the first time in her life, it wasn't the Empire's rhythm she felt, it was her own. Commander Lysaria stood at the edge of a stolen Velari scout ship, her hand resting against the window. Below them spun a rogue planet, abandoned, uncharted, no name. No law, no history, just silence. The kind of place where revolutions begin and legends are born. Beside her, Riker powered down the stolen ship systems. No signals, no trackers, no trace. They had escaped the Varkana, barely. I don't understand what's happening to me, Lysaria whispered. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something stranger. Energy, warmth, memory, all flowing beneath her skin. Riker looked at her with quiet understanding. It started when you touched the crystal, he said. No, she corrected. It started when I touched you. They stepped outside the ship, into a dark alien landscape, ash blue across cracked ground, and strange blue trees twisted in the distance like frozen smoke. A forgotten world, lost between stars. Riker led her to a small cave, part shelter, part lab. He had stored supplies. Here long ago, he'd been running long before she ever chased him. Inside, scanners lit up as soon as Lysaria entered. Her pulse spiked. The lights flickered, and the machines glowed red. Your body's changing, Riker said, checking the readings, not just mentally, physically. You're syncing with something in me, he added. Or maybe something in you was waiting. Lysaria sat on a bench, staring at her hands. I was trained not to feel, she said. Not to ask, not to dream, just to follow. But now I see faces in my sleep. She whispered. Children, Earth, your memories. Like they're becoming mine. Riker didn't answer. Instead, he placed a small device on the floor between them. It pulsed once, and the room shifted. Suddenly, they weren't in the cave. They were floating in a memory bubble, made from both their minds. It was a room, warm and quiet. A human home. Filled with light. A mother laughed. A child ran across the floor, the same child Lysaria saw in her vision. This isn't mine, she said. No. Riker replied, it's my past, but your mind let me in, he continued. Because you don't just feel sympathy, you feel connection. She turned to him slowly. What am I becoming? She asked. Something new, Riker said. Not human, not Villari, something in between. Lysaria blinked. Are you saying I'm mutating? No, he replied. I'm saying you're evolving. Suddenly the memory cracked. Alarms buzzed in the distance. The Empire had found them. They were tracking psychic spikes. And Lysaria's presence was giving off enough energy to light up a star map. Riker pulled her out of the mind space. We have to move, he said. But listen, he added, grabbing her arm. Before we run, there's something you need to hear. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small glowing chip. This holds the last message from my commander, he said. The one who died trying to stop the first invasion. He played the chip. A voice filled the cave, tired, wounded, but clear. If you're hearing this, it means Riker's still alive. The voice said, he carries something inside. Him, not a weapon, not a disease, but a choice. We thought we could fight the Empire with guns, the message continued. But the real weapon was never in our hands. It was in our ability to touch, to connect, to wake up the ones they turned into machines. The voice faded. Lysaria looked at Riker with wide eyes. Your commander believed we could be turned? She asked. No, he said. He believed you could be saved. She stepped closer, slowly, her hand reaching for his. Their fingers met, and a wave of light spread across the room. Not fire, not sound, but memory, trust, history. Flooding between them, images flashed, her as a child, crying in training camps, him under fire, holding on to hope. 2 paths, 2 scars, now crossing. She gasped, pulling her hand back, her eyes glowing, not with fear, but with purpose. What was that? She asked. That, Riker said, was the touch point. The moment 2 stories become one. Outside, explosions echoed in the sky, Empire ships landing, boots hitting the ground. But inside the cave, something stronger than war had been born. Not love, not yet, but something sharper. Something dangerous, something human. Asterisk, the first shot wasn't fired in space. It was fired in the mind of a soldier who decided not to follow orders. Lysaria stood on a mountain ridge of the outlaw moon Ravos, wind screaming across the rocks. Below, hundreds of rebels, human and Valari, gathered in silence. No flags, no uniforms, no ranks, just faces tired of obeying lies. Beside her stood Riker, his arms still wrapped from the last battle. He looked at the crowd, then at her. "They're not soldiers," he said. "No," she replied. "There's something better. They're believers, 3 days earlier. A Valari battleship had attacked a refugee planet. They didn't ask questions. They just bombed from orbit. Lysaria had watched the footage from a stolen feed. The Empire had stopped pretending to care. Now the choice was simple: hide and die, or rise and burn. In a dim war room deep inside the rebel camp, she stared at a hologram map. "We strike the communications tower on Arkan Spine," she said, pointing. "It's where the Empire controls propaganda across 6 systems. A young human mechanic raised his hand. "We're outnumbered," he said. "Even with your powers." Lysaria looked at Riker. He gave her a small nod. She stepped forward and placed both hands on the Fa's hands on the Phi table. "I'm not asking you to win," she said. "I'm asking you to make them listen." The next day, they moved in silence, old ships patched with spare parts, piloted by farmers, hackers, ex-slaves. Lysaria walked through the hangar, touching each ship as she passed. Each touch lit a small spark, not magic, but connection. Riker stood at the edge, watching her. "She's becoming the weapon they feared," a voice whispered beside him. It was Velrun, her former second-in-command, now rebel captain. "She was trained to kill," Riker said. "Now she's trained to wake up." Above Arkan's spine, the Empire didn't see the fleet coming. Why would they? No one expected rebels to attack the very heart of their voice. The battle began not with weapons, but with sound. A hacked broadcast exploded across every screen in the sector. It wasn't war footage, it was truth. Footage of the Earth bombings. Memory clips from the Truth Vault. Lysaria's voice cut through the noise. "This is not rebellion," she said. "This is remembrance." As her voice played, the rebels moved. Stealth ships flew under radar, landing strike teams near the tower's base. Lysaria led the charge herself. Armored not in metal, but in belief, Riker was close behind, holding nothing but a shock blade and determination. Inside the tower, guards panicked. Their own screens showed Lysaria calling for truth. Not blood. Some dropped their weapons, others pointed them at their own leaders. The rebels broke through the first gate, then the second. But before the third, everything changed. Boom! An explosion from within. One of the rebels screamed. Fire burst across the hallway, and in the smoke stood a shadow. "Hello, sister," the voice said. Lysaria froze. She knew that voice out. Of the smoke walked a tall Valari female, dressed in royal black, eyes sharp, armor sharper. "Commander Sevra," Riker whispered. "She's real?" "Yes," Lysaria said. "She was my first rival. She was my last friend." Sevra stepped forward. "You speak of truth," she said, "yet you stand beside a failed experiment." She looked at Riker with disgust. "You let him poison your mind." Lysaria raised her weapon. "No," she replied. "He helped me find it." The hallway lit up with energy. The sisters clashed. Power against power. Training against truth. Riker and the others held the line as chaos broke out. Across the tower, explosions rocked the structure. But something else shook Lysaria. Sevra wasn't trying to win. She was trying to stall. "You're too late," Sevra said, bleeding but smiling. "The Empire already knows." Outside, dozens of Valari warships dropped from hyperspace. The sky above Arkan's spine turned black. Back inside, Lysaria landed. A hard strike, sending Sevra to the floor. "You still have time to change," she said. But Sevra just laughed. "You touch the humans," she said, "and now you're infected. You think connection is power." "No," Lysaria said. "I think it's hope." She turned away. Sevra reached for her blade, but Riker stepped in. "No," he said, "We don't repeat the Empire's mistakes." They left her alive, but barely. The tower fell, but the signal kept going. The truth had spread too far to silence now. Lysaria stood outside the burning building, looking at the stars. "They're coming for us," Riker said. She nodded. "Then we make our stand where it all began," she replied. "On Earth." Earth didn't cry when they came. It roared. Ash rose from the ground like ghosts welcoming warriors home, above the dead planet. 100 Velari warships circled like vultures. Below, a broken world waited, its scars deep, its silence heavy. Lysaria stood on the old command platform where it all began. Her silver armor was cracked, her face marked with fire and dust. But her eyes were alive, not with fear, but with choice. Beside her, Riker knelt, blood running down his shoulder. His breath was shallow, and his heartbeat was fading. But even now, his hand reached for hers. "You said I'd regret touching you," she whispered, kneeling beside him, his lips curved into a weak smile. "And you said you wouldn't spare me," he replied. She laughed once, soft and broken. "Looks like we both lied." Hours earlier, the last resistance team had reached Earth. The rebels had no fleets, no weapons powerful enough to face the Empire head-on. But they had something else, the code. The data crystals recovered from Earth's truth vault contained a virus, not for computers, but for minds. One broadcast across the right frequency could awaken suppressed memories in every Velari soldier who had ever doubted. Lysaria stood in front of the device. The corecaster. She had one chance, one moment to send the signal, but it needed 2 keys to activate, 2 connected minds, bonded through memory, trust, pain, her and Riker. The final wave of Empire forces dropped from the sky. War engines slammed into the ground. The last battle had begun. Rebels held their ground, losing territory inch by inch. Riker fought until the last moment, until a blade found his back and drove him to the ground. Lysaria pulled him to cover. Hands shaking, "I need you," she said. Pressing her forehead to his voice was barely a whisper. "You have me." She carried him through fire, through screams, through walls collapsing, each step slower than the last, but she didn't stop. When they reached the corecaster, they dropped to their knees. 2 hand ports glowed, waiting for connection. One for her, one for him. Riker coughed, blood in his mouth. "You can't win this alone." "I don't want to," she replied. They placed their hands on the machine, and the world changed across the sky. A wave of blue light spread outward, silent and invisible. It wasn't just data, it was truth. Velari soldiers paused mid-battle, their minds opening. They saw Earth's past, the bombings, the erasures, the faces of children. They saw Lysaria choosing the human over her throne, and Riker offering peace when he had every reason to hate. Some dropped their weapons, others dropped to their knees, and some simply remembered. But inside the corecaster something was wrong. Riker's heartbeat had stopped. Lysaria turned to him, her hand still on the interface. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't leave me now." The machine needed living neural sync to maintain the signal. If Riker died, the truth would fade. Everything would be lost. She held his face, trembling. "You said you'd fight," she said. "You said you wouldn't die quietly." "Then don't." No answer, no breath. She lowered her head to his chest. Silence, and then a spark. Her body lit up, not with energy but with memory. All of his life passed through her. His first steps, his last battle, his love for Earth, and his quiet, constant, painful hope. The signal flared again, brighter, because now it was her carrying both minds. Her body had changed, her DNA fused with his during the last touchpoint. She was no longer just Velari, she was hybrid, and she was enough. The Empire's fleet began to retreat, not because they lost ships, but because they lost control. Their soldiers no longer followed, they remembered, and on Earth, inside a shattered tower, Lysaria held Riker in her arms, the sky above turning from red to pale blue. For the first time in generations, Earth saw peace. Riker opened his eyes. Barely, you brought it back, he whispered. The world, she smiled. Tears in her eyes. No, she said. We did. You touched me, Riker, she whispered. Now I'll never let you go.